Hi, welcome to another training movie for Canto Roboflow. Today I'm going to show you how to export to a CSV file, um, or in other words, how to export to a text file. Traditionally, you could start from a query in your Cumulus Catalog, and those records would be processed. We're making it a little bit more interesting. We have a little parameter file that is delivered to us, which contains in the first line the name of the person who requested this CSV file, his email address, and then the categories that he's interested in. How this file is created, it's just an example, but this could be a selection, for instance, in Sites that is saved by a plugin in Sites to a tabular text file. Roboflow could also be notified from Sites with a special plugin into Sites to write such a file immediately. So that's our starting point. We have a file in a folder, so we are going to use a hot folder workflow. In this hot folder workflow, we have the traditional hot folder to watch for and the other hot folder parameters. We are going to search in a catalog, so I added a parameter called catalog name. We are going to export a file to a place to a folder, so I need a temporary folder to store this, so I created that folder, and I added a parameter in which I specify the fields I want exported. So record name, ID, and categories could be a list of 50 fields or just 2 fields, it doesn't matter. You just specify the exact field name or GUID in Cumulus. The first thing we are going to do is open the catalog. We could just do an open catalog instruction here, but if there's 50 requests coming in, that would mean that he would open and close the catalog for every request, because this script, action script for files, is executed for every file dropped in the hot folder. I don't want to do that, so I do a little trick. I do a test progress, workflow progress instruction, on which I test if this is the first item, the first file of the loop, and in that case I open the catalog. If I just were to call this whatever my catalog, then this would be stored in the local variable table or parameter table of this file that it is processing. The next file would not have access to it. So that's why I have to prefix the name of this local variable to global, which tells the workflow to store it in the global parameters that are available for every item, every file processed by this workflow in this loop. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm opening catalog. I'm not specifying hard-coded the catalog. I could, but I don't. I use tag catalog name to get the catalog name that I specified here in this parameter. Then I'm going to store the current file that came in, and the current file that it's processing is always called hot in Roboflow. I'm saying it's a tab limited file. Actually, I could say that it's a comma separated file or a semicolon separated file, whatever, because it doesn't have any columns at all. It's just a single column file, just lines one after the other. I want it to be sorted because the order of the lines are important. It needs to keep the sort order in which it came in. That way it's certain to first process this line, then that line, then that line, etc., etc. If you were to put it on searchable, then you could specify a column number, but then when you just would process it, it would process it in random order because it's the search it expects you to do in that case and not process it line by line. I'm giving it a name, export, and then I want to know which line I'm processing because the lines are important. The first line is not a category name that I'm searching. The second is neither. So I first need to do those tests. So I'm storing a line counter. I'm saying 000, and I could say in the help here as well. And then now I'm doing process rows of a table. Remember, I stored my text file here as a table. So it's now a table in memory, and I'm saying, like an Excel table, process the lines, and I'm telling him to give me all lines. So I could also skip, for instance, the first row if I don't want to process it, but I do. I'm telling it again, sorted, not searchable, and then I say the output variable is line. So whatever I'm processing in here is called line. For every line it's executed. Then I'm incrementing my counter. I'm giving it the format 3 zeros means 3 digits, and I'm adding 1. So I'm adding 1 to my line counter, and then I'm testing that particular line counter to know if it's equals to 1. If it's equals to 1, then I know that at this point I'm getting from the parameter file the user. And the first line here was the name of the user. So I'm saying, okay, I'm storing that in a variable called user. And I'm a big fan of writing a lot of information in the log. So I'm writing this to my log file. We will see that later when we run the workflow. And then I'm saying store path of file name, which means that I have a path to a folder, which I'm picking up from the parameters. I had this export folder created here. So I'm picking up this information. I'm always putting those things that are variables, things that could change if you want to reuse this workflow in the parameter file, so I don't have to search in my script what I've been using for paths, for catalog names, for asset handling sets, etc. I'm always creating extra parameters up front. So there's one place to look for them. So here I'm storing a path in the export folder, and I call the file CSV export, and I have here a user, and I'm picking up the username that I just created and a date time format to make the file unique .csv here at the end. And I'm saying create if it doesn't exist, export file, and then that's what I did in this loop. The loop, it loops again, it increments the counter, and now the first I'm processing the second line, so my counter is 002, so this will return false. It's not the first line. I have a test else, and in the test else I test the counter, the line counter again, against the value 002, and 002 I'm saying test if second line. If this returns yes, then I'm going to store a header row in my tab limited text. I want in my tab limited text, in my CSV file that I'm exporting, I want the header in there of the field names. So here, store column from row as text. So I'm storing the second line, column 1, and there's only one column, under email. Later I will be emailing this file to somebody, writing the information to the text. And then I could just write to that text file my parameter here, because it's a tab limited text. So, but I could make it a little bit generic, which means that instead of just outputting this as a header, which would be correct, I'm going to loop through it as an example, because maybe you choose to have a different separator here, a piping symbol or whatever, and then you need to do that anyway. So I'm storing an empty string called CSV line, and then I'm processing the parts of a split text. And what text am I picking up? Well, from the parameters, I have this export fields. They have semicolon separated fields, so I'm saying field. I'm calling that field, and I'm going to loop through my text and process every semicolon separated. Then what I'm doing is I'm picking the current value of the CSV line and I'm appending the field name, and then I'm saying put a semicolon. Then I have my CSV line that way, and now when I created my CSV line, I can here add a carriage return line feed at the end. And then I'm writing that to the text file. I'm appending. That was my second line of my text file. Every next line contains the category name I want to search for. So in my else of my second line, it's not the second line, so it returns false. I'm coming into this section. I'm storing the first column of this line under the tag category, and I'm writing this to my log, and then I'm testing if it's not empty. Could be that there are empty lines in there. We don't want to go searching for category equals nothing. So find records. I'm doing a query. I'm querying the categories with the category that I found, which returns me a number of records in a collection. I'm writing the result to the log, and then I'm processing the records of that collection, my catalog, and every item is a record, will be called hot, a hot record. It will not be confused with the fact that a file is also called hot in here, because behind the scenes it's actually not called hot, but hot record, and the file is called hot file. So there's no confusion for the workflow. You can call it hot. Then again, I'm doing the same loop over my fields. Now I need to pick up for every record every field. So in my parameter here, I need to store my CSV as empty. I'm processing that export fields list, and I'm going to store. Here I could have made it a little bit longer and first done store record field value, but I'm using a little bit the old syntax here. I'm picking up the field from the field. So I'm using these @ signs surrounding my hash to tell the processor that it first needs to pick up this value and that value, and only when that is done it will execute, oh careful, it will execute that part here, getting the record field for that particular field. So it's creating the export file, and when that is done, when that loop is done, at the end I'm adding a carriage return line feed at the end. So now I have a CSV that I write to text. When all my records are processed, it will go to the next and the next and the next until all my rows of the table are processed, and then I'm storing the file path. I'm creating the text for the email, and it says, hi, this is your export attached. And then here you can put this tag, this special instruction, email file path, and this tells it to append the file that was stored under the file path that we just did. The instruction above, we stored the file path of our export file, so it's attaching that file, and then it's sending the email to whom. Well, we stored the email of the second line in the text file in a tag called email, and the subject is export file, and here is the mail text that we just created. And then finally we have a test if this is the last item, the last file of the hot folder. If so, in that case we are closing the catalog. So we're keeping the catalog open for all files processed in this loop. So let's run the workflow. I say start here and it will start processing. And if we have a look in the log, I can do show log. I can see that it found a file called text.txt. In the first line it finds the username. In the second line it finds the email address. In the third line it finds Berlin and it searches for it. It finds 28 records. Rome it found no records, and Paris it found no records. And then the email and one file is sent to Peter at localhost. So if I check my mail, I have here, hi, this is blah, 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 and I have email attachment. If I want to hide this, I can add HTML tags in front and at the end. That way it will automatically process that. And here I have my CSV export file attached. And so if I open it, I can open it with Excel, for instance. Okay. Oh, I didn't open it with Excel. I opened it with this. You can see that it is comma semicolon separated file, and it nicely exports per file. It finds the information that you requested, which was the record name, the ID, and the categories, which it automatically separates by commas, sorry. Okay, so this was yet another example of Roboflow workflow. I hope this helps you, and if you have any questions, let me know.